the NCAA wants to crack down. And right now, the fact that the Michigan Wolverines are one of the more popular college teams when it comes to college football, that is why the NCAA wanted to drop the hammer on them. Now, the sanctions are very, very interesting. It doesn't really hurt Jim Harbaugh just as much as it didn't hurt Pete Carroll when he decided to step away from USC when winning back-to-back national championships and having Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, who lost his Heisman Trophy. The fact here is that the NCAA obviously are trying to drop bones on the fact that all these coaches were involved with it. And obviously Connor Stalions was behind the whole thought of the process of hand signs and figuring out over hundreds of signs that were coming from the Michigan Wolverines side and figuring out how teams were calling plays at certain aspects of the game where they can obviously be on top of a defensive player or be on top of an offensive play, which obviously gave them an advantage. But teams for years have been trying to find ways for advantages. I know everybody's going to sit here and say the Wolverines were wrong and they should have been penalized for every single thing they've done. And they're going to be, and they have been. The fact is it's not fair to these other youngsters that are going to the school, decide to go and play for Michigan, and be penalized for the situation in hand. Now, I look at, obviously, Jim Harbaugh. Guy's a very smart man. He comes from a very smart family. His father's very, very smart. His brother's very, very smart. His brother, well, obviously, we all know who John Harbaugh is for the Baltimore Ravens. He's won, obviously, championships. And then you look at his father, Jim, who has been a part of the Wolverine organization and program for a very, very, very long time. These are guys that are very well respected in professional football and college football. Denard Robinson is a guy that obviously is going to be looked at moving forward as a guy that you might not want to hire in the future as a head coach or maybe as an offensive coordinator because of all the different thoughts and scandals that they were behind with these hand signs. Connor Stalions is another guy who I feel bad for Connor because Connor really took the brunt of this whole story. He really did. Now, he was asked to do this. This guy became a pro at figuring out and reading signs. And a lot of people believe that Ohio State's coaching staff, and I'm not going to mention any names, was behind it. They were the team, and that was the program that was really trying to figure out how they were getting these signs and how they were stealing signs the way they were. But the fact is that the Michigan Wolverines are going to get the hammer. And they're going to be taken very, very seriously when it comes to these allegations. Now, I go back to all these punishments and looking at the fine, $35 million. Is $35 million a lot of money for this program? Not really. This program, when they go to ball games, they're making tens of millions of dollars. If they go to one ball game in the next 2 or 3 years, that money is washed away. I also believe that this scandal is going to obviously open up options and thoughts that this isn't going to be taken away, and this is obviously going to be people are going to look past this because this has been going on forever, and teams are doing this every single year. Michigan was the only team that was really caught by it. Now, I don't think they're the only school, and I don't think this will be the last school in the next 20 years that are going to be caught with sign stealing. So think that Jim Harbaugh is one of the smartest coaches we've seen over the last 20 years in college football. This guy is an aggressive coach, very, very old school. We see how he likes to run his offenses, run the ball first, build through the offensive line in the trenches. That's what a lot of these older veteran coaches like to do. You ask Bill Belichick, you ask Bill Parcells, you ask any of Gibbs, you ask any of these top coaches in the NFL and even in college football. The old school football has always worked. Now you go back to obviously Jim Harbaugh and what Jim Harbaugh is as a head coach. We see he's very successful in the NFL, and we've seen that he's built his success in college football by building his program the exact way he built it when he built it with San Francisco. I look at college football with the money, the NIL deals, and the opportunity that these players have now in hand for themselves, that these kids, these youngsters are going to have an opportunity to stay in college football a little bit longer. We talk about Arch Manning. We'll get into that a little bit later. A guy that thinks and believes that he is going to play another 3 years of college eligibility. So this is the thing now. There's so much money now being made through endorsements and sponsorships sponsorships and NIL deals, there's an opportunity now that these kids have an opportunity to stay in their schools or respectable schools or go into the portal. And if they want to play for Georgia or they want to play for UCLA or USC, they're going to have the chance to do that. Now, the problem here is, and you go back to the thought of all these different coaches that are being sanctioned from the list of coaches that were involved with it. What about the coaches and the names that have been brought up over the years and the sanctions that were dropped over the years with guys and programs like USC? And I can't come off the head on some of the other sanctions that we've seen over the years. There are other schools that were sanctioned very, very hard by the NCAA. I don't really think that the NCAA, besides the money aspect, it really was sanctioned for the money. It wasn't sanctioned for the schools and the program. Going back, I don't believe that the penalties should be dropped on the youngsters that are going to play for Michigan. Nevertheless, we've seen this. How about the kids that went to USC after all the stuff that happened over there with Pete Carroll and that program? They lost their championships. They don't even exist still to the NCAA and their beliefs on what they obviously are pushing for. If you're going to cross the line and you're going to do the things that are not written in the book, well, we're going to sanction you and we're going to obviously take away a lot of different things that you're going to offer to these students if they come to your schools. So that to me is the problem here. That to me, you have to look at the big picture and support what the NCAA is trying to do, but are you supporting what they're trying to drive out of the Michigan program as far as money's concerned? Because money is not an object. If you go to Texas A&M, some of the richest schools in the country, $35 million is drips and drabs to the program. Now, Michigan, they're a very well-known program, a program that's very well respected. They're practically in a ball game every single year. They're going to be in that 12-team tournament as soon as they get this team to start moving in the proper direction. Now that Jim Harbaugh is gone, they're going to have opportunities to play in those ball games, to play in those tournaments, to get a chance to win a national championship. So I don't know how $35 million is really a big cost to the program when you look at some of the schools that have been sanctioned over the years. And that's what bothers me about the NCAA. They decide to spin the wheel and make the deal with one team and one program and spin the wheel to make it with the other. That, to me, is the problem right now with how they're sanctioning the Wolverines to all the other schools that have been caught with something. Connor Stalions is getting the brunt of this. Connor Stalions is never going to be a coach again. He's never going to get an opportunity again after what Michigan did to them. And Michigan brushed him under the rug. They pretty much threw him to the dogs, threw him to the wolves, and said, you know what? We washed our hands with Connor Stalions. Stalions is the one that took the brunt of this. Sharon Moore is going to get another job. He's going to get another opportunity because he's a good coach. The hammer was dropped on a guy that was asked to do what he is good at, and that's reading signs and watching other sidelines.
And using military technology.
And using military technology to get those signs in and figure out what those signs mean. I feel bad for Connor because Connor's the one that took the brunt of this. Remember, he grew up a Michigan Wolverines fan. Mm-hmm. This is a kid that grew up, repping the colors, repping the school, the program. And now all of a sudden this kid was thrown to the wolves because Jim Harbaugh said, you know what, I don't know this guy. I didn't tell him to do that. He did it himself. That's pretty much what he's saying. I had nothing to do with it. I knew something about it. You're the head coach. You're going to tell me you knew nothing about what Connor was doing? It's sad that they're trying to press on somebody, and the first thing they're going to do is press on the one guy that can't protect himself, that can't go out there and speak to the public or the media. There are stories being written about him, and obviously the ESPN or 30 for 30 was the documentary that they did for him, where they were trying. I think they were trying to uncover what Jim Harbaugh and the program was doing and trying to protect Connor in some kind of way. And Connor just goes out there and he's protecting Jim Harbaugh because he respects the coaching staff and he respects what the Wolverine program was giving him and the opportunities they were giving him. But now, all of a sudden, they're dropping the hammer on somebody. They're not dropping on the big coaches. They're dropping on the one guy that was asked to do something that he is strong and understands a little bit more than those coaches do.